Clarkson's Farm, that TV series on Amazon, seems to have become a bit of a phenomenal success. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't watch television generally, but somebody put me onto it, and I've watched every episode now thanks to my son's Amazon account, and I want to talk about it in today's show. To do today's show, I had to come out onto a piece of farmland because I want to talk about Clarkson's Farm. It's a television program, if you don't know, on Amazon Prime. I'm not an Amazon Prime user, and so I've had to borrow my son's account in order to watch the program. And I've watched all 8 episodes of Series 1. And as I record this, I've just heard that Season 2 is going ahead, and I believe they're already filming it now. And it's an interesting thing because I wouldn't say I was a great Jeremy Clarkson fan. I've watched a few Top Gears, thought it was okay. Quite like the dynamic with the 3 of them, but for me it got a bit samey, but I did enjoy some of it. I've never seen any of the Grand Tour that I believe that Jeremy Clarkson has also done. However, this Clarkson Farm I thought was brilliant. I really did think it was brilliant. I'm curious to know what other farmers made of it. For those that haven't seen it, essentially Jeremy Clarkson made a lot of money obviously from his other television stuff, bought a farm I think in 2008 in the Cotswolds, a 1,000-acre farm with woodland, streams and a lot of arable. He used to have somebody else who would manage the farm, and that person retired, and so he thought he would do it himself. Now, one being in the sort of ex-television world and in the filming world, slightly skeptical that that's exactly the story. But I think the idea of making it as a television program would mean that if he did it himself and the television program was successful, and why wouldn't it be, he would certainly cover any losses. And actually, I think that being again the skeptic that I am, that's the reason he could do these big projects, spend the money on the big tractor, because he had the budget from the television production that was going to make sure that it was going to be a success. And it had to be a success because Amazon were behind it, and it seems that it has been, and that's really good. Now, I thought each of the 8 episodes were technically beautifully filmed, wonderfully put together, and the storylines particularly very well crafted. And as you watch it, you may think, well, perhaps there is no storylines, it's all a bit happenstance, it just happens. And clearly there was a number of unexpected incidents that would have happened, such as the amount of rain that they had, the drought that they had, and of course the pandemic coming in when it did. And that must have caused a lot of issues and a lot of problems and a lot of rethinking on the projected storylines, because television like that, and with somebody like Clarkson and the money that was being invested, had to work. You couldn't just put something together ad hoc, not like you would do on a YouTube video. So I think it was absolutely brilliant in terms of a piece of television, but also I think it was very clever, because instead of laughing at farmers and the whole farming business, I think we laugh at Jeremy Clarkson because he's incompetent. I don't think he's quite as incompetent as he makes out, but that's television for you. It gave us a reason to appreciate actually all the other characters who were doing remarkable things, who were genuine farmers, or related to the farming industry, being perhaps veterinarians or people who are selling crops and whatever it was, we appreciated those people had to deal with this idiot who was trying to cope and put himself a fish out of water situation into the farming. So I think that actually was a very good thing for the farming community and for people's appreciation of farming, because we immediately started to understand just how difficult these tasks were. You don't just put seeds in the ground and up they come and you reap the profits. It's a lot harder than it looks. And I think that's a great lesson for everybody to appreciate. And of course, how much the weather and circumstances out of your control have and affect your ability to get stuff done, as well as the ability to earn any money from it. What I also liked about the programme was it wasn't just about the big crops. In fact, the big crops really played quite a small part in the overall programme. And when you think that farming these days, a lot of farming is about monoculture, one prairie after prairie of one crop, and that's all that is, and it's being harvested and then sold like the grain and various things. It was interesting that in order to make it interesting and more palatable, I think, to the viewer, it harked back to what we do like, and that's mixed farming and what we sort of imagine farming to be. And so there was a bit of market gardening going on in the series with the farm shop and the various crops that suddenly Jeremy, I've had a great idea, would come up with. And I thought that was a brilliant element, because we could see him growing potatoes in significant numbers and then having to do something with them. Again, it came down to the storytelling of what he was going to do with them, but he was growing all sorts of different crops and trying out different things. Now, I don't think an ordinary farmer would do that, and if it hadn't been for the budget and perhaps a bit of Jeremy's own money thrown at it and his own panache and style and the whole televisual storytelling process, most farmers wouldn't do that sort of thing, trying to get water from the springs and sell that, and whatever else they were doing with the sheep, buying sheep just to mow the grass and keep the grass. They were talking about wilding in terms of bringing insects back, and a number of issues that farmers do have to consider, and I think that was very, very good. So overall, I think it was great, and I gather that it's been one of Amazon's instant successes and it's been very, very popular with the audience. And that is terrific, because I think farming, as I've mentioned many times in my videos here on YouTube, is one of the most important things that we can do. And I've been myself wanting to have a bit of land, a field like this. I don't know how big this field is. It's probably about 8 acres, I imagine. It's quite a big field, but it would be lovely to have a field like this just to work on. 8 acres against Jeremy Clarkson's 1,000 acres. He had a lot of big machinery, of course, and he was demonstrating really by going over the top in many ways how unnecessary that was, and how you can easily come a cropper, and how expensive everything was. And at the end of the first series, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to give too much away really, but they came up with how much a farmer would earn. Now, they spent quite a bit of money. They did spend a lot on equipment, and of course within the series Jeremy just keeps buying stuff, employing people and doing things very much on spec, which of course no farmer would really do. But he was, in a way, I mean, it was laughable, and of course that's partly part of television, isn't it, to make it amusing, and so during the laughing you're actually learning. But he was demonstrating a fact of how expensive so much of this is to do. And I thought that was a very well put together part of the show really, But anyway, he shows how much money that you can make in farming, which, you know, spoiler alert, wasn't very much. Series 2 coming. That's going to be interesting. What's he going to do? He can't really, I mean, this is television for you, he can't really repeat the same thing. So I imagine there'll be different crops. He'll have learnt stuff, which we will learn from, and perhaps he'll go into some dairy farming. I imagine that'll be the next thing, and selling their own milk over a year. I think that in order to keep that series as unique and as entertaining, he's clearly got to come up with new types of things. If it creates an interest in farming from everybody else to become aware of where their food comes from, I think that will be very good. So he may have battery hens, possibly. What else could he have? More market gardening would be terrific, and the problems and associated with that. The thing about the farm shop was interesting. I mean, okay, he has a Twitter following of something like 7 million people, I think he said. And so the day he opened his farm shop, he didn't have to put in local advertisements. He could just tweet out that he had opened it, and people came because they wanted to see him and buy anything. I mean, in the farm shop, it basically only had potatoes, was pretty much all he had grown to give away. And most of those were right at the end of their life anyway. But people came because they wanted to meet him and have access to him. And you can see that's a huge asset that most farmers didn't have. But during the pandemic, of course, we know that people were very much into where can I get food? I don't want to go to a supermarket and mix with people. I want local food. I want to be healthy, and quite right too. So that's made me think that if more of that, and I'm hoping that will be in series 2, more about local food, more about mixed farming, more about getting your food off the ground, that more people will grow, and that farmers themselves will move away from prairie farming back to mixed farming. It's a big hope, and I don't suppose that will happen really, but I think that actually, for all its humour, and for all that a lot of people don't like Jeremy Clarkson because they think of him as a pollutant with his cars and stuff, I think that actually he's done a really clever and brilliant job of bringing people back to the land. And we see a different Clarkson in that. There's a shot where he's had to take 3 ewes because they had a problem to the abattoir, and whilst he's signing the papers, they've been dispatched, and he didn't expect that, and he goes to say goodbye to them and they've already been killed. And you can see there was a genuine, very upset and tearful Jeremy Clarkson. And I think you get to see a bit more of the man. Although it's storytelling and although a lot of it's contrived, there's a lot of realism in there, and that's what I liked. Anyway, that's my review on Clarkson's Farm. I'm actually looking forward to seeing the second one, the second series. So look out for that. If you've not seen it, it's on Amazon Prime, and definitely well worth a look. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I will be getting on with my longer format shows very soon myself. So thank you very much for all your comments and support. Don't forget to follow, like and subscribe, and give me a thumbs up, and become a patron, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now. Bye bye.